Yeah, 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 yeah.
That down, girl. But when you hit the ground,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Last year, I did a cross-country road trip with my husband. We spent 2 months on the road from August 9th to October 11th. After 27 different states, 14 major US cities, 15 national parks and monuments, we're back to California. One of the main goals for me in this road trip is to capture different styles in different cities. Prior to this trip, I have done a ton of street fashion photos in San Francisco and Oakland. In this video, I would like to show you some of my best street fashion photos in California and across the country. Let's get started by taking a look at the map. I just want to quickly show you the route we took. We left Northern California to Lava Beds National Monument. Then Crater Lake, Oregon. We headed east to Craters of the Moon in Idaho. Yellowstone National Park in Wyoming, which is a huge destination for me. Stopped by Devil's Tower. Then Mountain Rushmore in South Dakota and Badlands National Park right here. Went further east to Minneapolis, stopped by Bemidji, that's where I went to university for 2 years. Head east to Chicago, Detroit, Niagara Falls, Boston, New York, Philadelphia, Washington, D.C., Shenandoah National Park, Big Smoky National Park, Nashville, Tennessee, Mammoth Cave in Kentucky, which is the longest cave known to man. We went back west to Colorado, Denver, Boulder, Rocky Mountain National Park, then Moab in Utah, Arches National Park, and Canyonland National Park. Stopped by Oregon to visit a friend, then we went back to Northern California. Let's get started with the home base first. I would describe people's style at Northern California as casual, eccentric, swag, a lot of swag, which reflects the personalities of people here. You also have a lot of international people like tourists and transits, so people's style could be very different from each other. But in general, I would categorize it as eccentric and laid back. Prior to the cross-country road trip, we actually made a shorter trip to Portland and Seattle in the spring. I noticed that their styles are very similar to that of California, since we're all on the West Coast. I also see a huge comeback of vintage clothes in these cities and other cities across the country. Minneapolis is the first big city I took pictures of in the road trip. The Midwest doesn't get a lot of love when it comes to fashion, but it doesn't mean people don't dress up, especially in cities like Minneapolis. I went to the Uptown area, which is a hip area. I also went to Minnesota State Fair. Chicago is a jewel of the Midwest. When I think about fashion in Chicago, I think about clean-cut guys wearing sports jerseys or nice button-up shirts. I took most of my pictures by an art institute in Chicago, so these folks are more on the alternative side. Detroit is one of my favorite stops in the entire road trip, just because the history of Detroit is so fascinating and people were so nice and down to earth. The weekend I was there were 2 festivals back to back on Saturday and Sunday. There was definitely a sense of community and art. Rent is cheap, so I can see why people would like to move to the Motor City. Boston is a highly anticipated city for me because I have heard so much about the East Coast style, how they were dressier than the West Coast. After I took a look for myself, I think that claim is true. I did make a short visit to Howard University as well. Sorry to disappoint, but I think they dress like college students everywhere else. New York is the capital of fashion in the US. It didn't disappoint, that I can tell you. When I got to New York, I saw what the hype was all about. People there were just more fashionable. Another thing I noticed in New York was that a lot of women wear dresses. You know, this city is about power and status. A woman with a nice dress is very powerful. Philadelphia, the city of brotherly love. Somebody described to me their style as trashy glamorous or ghetto glamorous, something along that line. It's a pretty intense city, I'm not gonna lie, but we came out unscratched. By the time we reached Washington, D.C., we were absolutely exhausted. We had to spend a whole day at our Airbnb place to recover. The second you get out Washington, D.C. to Virginia, you're in the South, which seems to be so close to the North. We didn't spend a lot of time in the South because it was already fall at that point, and we wanted to wrap up the trip. I like Boulder much better than Denver. Downtown Denver has so many homeless people, which reminds me of San Francisco, not a good thing. Boulder is a big city with a small town feel. It's right by the mountains, which is probably why it's called Boulder. It has a very outdoorsy feel. This is the last photo taken this trip. All in all, I had a great time. It's one of a lifetime experience. I'm glad I had the opportunity to do it. So that's it for today's video. If you would like to see more of my street fashion photos, please visit my website at imaginesville.com and follow me on Instagram at imaginesville. Subscribe to my YouTube channel if you would like to see more fashion blogging tips and photography techniques. I have some really cool videos lined up for you. I'll see you next time.
You know I've been taking some time and I've been keeping to myself. I had my eyes upon the prize, ain't watching anybody else. But your love, it hit me hard, girl. Yeah, you're bad for my health. I love the